All right, let's talk about those cravings. You know the ones, the one that make it impossible to eat just one chip or to stop scrolling through your phone. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden force that makes certain things so, well, so irresistible. And it all starts with a very strange question about a baby bird.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Why on earth would a tiny, brand new chick prefer a piece of cardboard over the actual beak that feeds it? The answer is kind of mind blowing. And once you get it, you'll start to see it everywhere in our own world. To figure this out, we need to look at some very peculiar animal instincts.
So, let's kick things off with the gull and the goose. We're going to start with a couple of fascinating animal experiments that might seem totally random. But trust me, they have a direct line to why you can't put down your phone at night. Okay, so picture this. It's the 1940s, and this brilliant scientist, Nico Timbergen, is just watching some herring gulls. He notices that the mother gull has this little red dot on her beak, and whenever the baby chicks get hungry, they peck at that exact spot. It's their signal for, hey, time for lunch. Super simple, right? Just a basic instinct. But Timbergen thought, I wonder how deep that instinct really goes. So what does he do? He creates this ridiculously simple fake beak. We're talking just a stick with a piece of cardboard on it. But on this fake one, he doesn't paint one red dot, he paints 3 big ones. And when he showed it to the chicks, they went absolutely bananas. They pecked at it way, way more than they ever did for their actual mom. And when you put them side by side, the difference is just wild. On one hand, you've got the normal thing. One red dot, which gets a totally normal response. But then you show them this exaggerated over-the-top version with 3 red dots, and their response just goes through the roof. It's frantic. You see, their little bird brains were just following a simple rule. Red dot means food. So their logic was, oh, more red dots must mean way more food. And this wasn't just a one-time fluke with gulls. Tinbergen saw the exact same thing with gray-lag geese. Now, these geese have an instinct to roll any eggs that have fallen out back into the safety of their nest. So Tinbergen puts a giant volleyball next to one of their real eggs. And what does the goose do? It completely ignores its own smaller egg and puts all of its energy into trying to roll this massive, impossible volleyball into the nest. Its brain is just screaming, bigger, round thing is a better egg. So we've got a fake beak that's more attractive than a real one and a volleyball that's more interesting than an actual egg. What in the world is going on here? Well, this powerful force, this exaggerated reality, it actually has a name. It's called a supernormal stimulus, and that's the key idea for today. It's just a souped-up, exaggerated version of something we're naturally drawn to. And because it's so exaggerated, it triggers a response in our brains that's way more powerful than the real thing ever could. It's basically a cheat code for our instincts. So how does this whole hijacking process work? It's surprisingly simple, really just a 3-step deal. First, our brains are already wired with these basic instinctual rules. For the gull, it's peck red dots. Second, we come across some pumped-up, exaggerated version of that rule, like a beak with 3 dots. And boom, third step, that triggers a response that is completely wildly over the top. Okay, birds and geese, cool. But what does any of this have to do with you? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. Let's bring this into our world and talk about something we all know and love, junk food. You have to remember that for nearly all of human history, calories were hard to come by. Our brains evolved in an environment where finding anything with salt, sugar, or fat was a huge win. It meant survival. So our brains got really, really good at rewarding us for finding it. Now fast forward to today. Food is everywhere, but here's the kicker. We're still running on that same 50,000-year-old brain software. And this is where the modern food industry comes in, because they have become absolute masters at creating supernormal stimuli. They engineer foods with something called dynamic contrast. That's the crunchy cookie with the creamy filling. They perfect the Oro sensation, which is just a fancy word for how good a chip feels when it crunches in your mouth. And they hunt for the bliss point, that scientifically calculated perfect mix of salt, sugar, and fat that lights up your brain and makes you powerless to stop. These aren't just foods anymore, they are products engineered to be irresistible. And honestly, this quote from neuroscientist Stefan Guyanet just hits the nail on the head. We've gotten too good at pushing our own buttons. We have literally learned how to exploit our own deepest evolutionary desires. Now, here's the really wild part. Once you see this pattern, you can't unsee it. This force goes way, way beyond the snack aisle. It's everywhere.
I mean, just think about it. What is social media? It's a concentrated blast of social approval, more likes and hearts in 5 minutes than our ancestors got in a year. Advertisements? They show us photoshopped, perfectly lit versions of reality that are literally impossible to achieve. Even the mannequins you see in clothing stores have exaggerated proportions because it makes the clothes look better. They are all heightened versions of things our brains are naturally wired to want. So this isn't just some neat piece of trivia. Understanding this idea of supernormal stimuli actually uncovers a fundamental rule about how we behave, how our habits get formed. And if you can understand the rule, you can start to use it.
And what all of this points to is the second law of behavior change: make it attractive. It's simple, really. The more attractive, stimulating, and exaggerated an option is, the more likely we are to build a habit around it. And that could be for good or for bad. And you can see this trend of concentration just escalating all around us. The world is constantly taking things we naturally desire and engineering more potent, more attractive versions. Natural foods become hyper-palatable junk foods. A simple game of checkers evolves into a totally immersive, high-definition video game. The rewards are just getting more and more intense, and because of that, they're getting harder and harder to resist. In that, right there, is the central challenge of living in the modern world. We're walking around with the brains of our ancient ancestors, but we're surrounded by temptations that they couldn't have even dreamed of. So that leaves us with one final, really important question. The world around us is being engineered every single day to become more and more attractive, more irresistible. That's not going to stop. The real question is, knowing that, how are you going to design your world? How will you manage your own environment and your own life?